Welcome to the Film Don't Lie podcast. I'm your host, Colin King, and here today we're talking about Fernando Mendoza as the quarterback one of the 2026 NFL Draft. I'm joined by Richie and Reed, and today's episode is brought to you by Novana Sports. So before we kind of talk about everything, let's go ahead and just let the other guys introduce themselves.
Reed, you got it.
Hi. I'm Reed Nightswanner. I'm currently working with the University of Louisville Film Department right now, and I'm just a big football nerd. I love talking about, these prospects from a more analytical perspective. So that's what I'm here to do.
I'm Richie Heron. I'm currently working with U of L as well. Basically, I'll just be adding on to what I see, fundamentally, and going off what Colin and Reed talk about.
And I'm Colin, and I'll be kind of just talking about data analytics stuff as well as, Reed will be more focused on the analytical like scheme prep and whatnot. I'm working with the University of Louisville as well in recruiting, and yeah, kind of just looking more towards that recruiting scouting field. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. I just wanted to quickly talk about where, out of the quarterbacks we charted, we've got our draft board that we're working on, all three of us. Mendoza ranks first in the touchdown percentage, total touchdowns, player efficiency rating. He's just really at the top, right? He's the cream of the crop, if you will. He's also really high up there, EPA per dropback. I know Diego Papi has actually got the highest EPA, which is a little bit of a shock to us when looking over the statistics. But he's a very, very talented quarterback. He was not necessarily asked to do too terribly much. But he did exactly what he needed to do, and that is obviously what won them the national championship. Fernando Mendoza checks in 6'5", 225. His height puts him at the 96th, 97th percentile of all quarterbacks the last 20 years. And then 225 puts him in around the 62nd percentile. He's got 9.5 inch hands and 31 and 7/8 inches arm length. So yeah, we'll go ahead and kind of jump right into the film if Reed, you want to pull that up.
Yeah, I got it here. This is going to be a game against Iowa. This was a low completion percentage game for Mendoza. He had 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, around 250 yards passing. We're just going to kind of delve into our first look here. We got a tight bunch on the right side. We're calling out of an 11 personnel look. Very, very common look. You see that a ton in college. It's declining in the NFL, but again, being comfortable in those looks is going to be very important to playing in a modern NFL offense. First off here, we're getting a quick bubble screen action. As you'll see here, I really like how quickly you're going to see Fernando Mendoza flips his hips and makes his throw. It's something that we don't really pay too much attention to when you're watching games in the NFL, even when you're watching games in college football. But it's really nice just to see him posture himself to read this backer. Backer's flowing in. Makes it really easy. Flips the hips. Gets about 8 yards. Actually, gets about 11 yards there on, and this is from, of course, our overhead perspective. It's just inside zone here. Get a stutter step from our tackle. That's how we know it's inside zone. And just a quick pull. Great way to flip your hips. Make an easy throw happen. Not that something we're going to gloss over too much, but it's a good play.
I just want to quickly step in here and just talk about, some of the weapons that Indiana has and they've kind of went to. They had Kalen Black at running back. You'll see him. You'll see Roman Hemby as well. Omar Cooper Jr. wide receiver. Elijah Surratt, who'll be more of your contested catch, jump ball receiver. Riley Nowakowski at tight end will probably play at fullback in the NFL. And then the O-line, you've got probably a future, probably top 3-round left tackle in Carter Smith. Ended up deciding to go back to college this year, but he'll be a good one in the next class. And then you've got Pat Coogan at center, who should be one of the top probably 5 or 6 centers taken in this class. But yeah, we'll let it go right back into the film.
Go into the next play. This next play is a touchdown off a smash concept here. Again, if we're looking at alignment, we're getting a single mug front here. We got 4 down, backer mugged around off the 7. He is, I believe, he's going to play tight end short here, but I can't draw on these, but this is going to be a smash, which means number 13, our outside receiver, is going to run a 5 hitch, and our slot is going to break out on a soft corner. This is a really good ball by Fernando Mendoza. You're going to watch on the peak of his drop. He's decisive, right? We don't give a lot of credit to a quarterback being decisive. We like to see big throws, we like to see big plays. Sometimes a really big play or a chunk play in the NFL is just a quarterback being decisive, sticking with the read that he knows that he can, sticking with the read he sees and putting the ball in the right place. This is a great example of that from Mendoza himself. We know we're getting man because we're going to watch our corners got eyes on the receiver. He's going to stick with him low, which means we got a lot of space outside here. Mendoza's right at the peak of his drop. He's going to release it. It is going to be a beautiful ball for a quick touchdown.
Yeah.
Yep. Undercuts the safety really well. What do you guys think? We'll pass over to you guys. What do you think about that completion?
Do you want to take this?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's decisive. He gets to the bottom of his drop, and he just gets rid of it quickly. And obviously, like you said, he undercuts the safety. It's placed well, and it's just a good overall decision, as we can see here.
I was going to say, we kind of watched this, in particular this rep, because it was against Cohen Entringer there, the new Louisville safety.
Yeah.
When we were kind of looking to see how he looked on film. Not terribly played, I guess, by him, but he was a little bit out of position there, and it's put on the wrong money from Fernando Mendoza and then right to Omar Cooper Jr. So not much else to say there.
It's a simple, when it comes to smash concepts, you're reading one half of the field. You could see actually from Indiana's perspective, they chalk up double protection on the weak side of the play. So they really just wanted to isolate these two receivers. And that's not something you won't see in the NFL. A lot of people think the NFL is a 4-5 route league. That's not the case. A lot of teams, especially from that new West Coast style that you see from Shanahan, you're seeing from the McDaniel offenses, even from Seattle's offense with Clint Kubiak last season, they are not afraid to put 2 or 3 in protection and allow the quarterback to make, 3-step drop, read one side of the field. If not, throw it away or look for running lanes, which I think will fit really well as well. I think the next play is not, I think it might be, is it a sack? We'll see. All right, so we're in 11 personnel here. We're going to have one high safety roll. I believe this is a quick completion for Mendoza. Here.
Corner blitz there.
Yep.
She rolls through really well. I think when we talk about quarterback mobility, we get kind of caught into taking it into one big thing. When we say a quarterback is mobile, I think there's 2 different kinds of mobility. There's a mobility to extend the play, and there's a mobility for rushing purposes. I think Mendoza's strength really comes in his rushing ability, not really in his extension ability. And you see this right here. He does a decent job of extending, but for the most part, he's a little iffy sometimes with his feet. His shoulders sometimes mirror his feet, which can make it very difficult to have accurate throwing angles on the move. But the second he tucks the ball, he is a very good downhill runner. He turns what really should be a loss into a gain of 40 yards on the ground there. I'll let you guys comment on that kind of aspect of his game.
Yeah, and like the first watch through, like we were thinking, okay, he's maybe not that mobile, but as we watched more, we were like, okay, well, comparing to the other quarterbacks definitely in this class, it's not a great quarterback class, right? But we saw that, okay, maybe he's more towards the middle of the pack than we initially thought. We were looking just maybe not necessarily the extender as some other guys, like Diego Pavia is actually a really good extender for his size, especially. But he is a pretty solid runner. We definitely saw that in the Miami National Championship game. He had that big run. He had a couple other big runs this season that were pretty patented on their run to the national championship. So we kind of have determined over watching several games now that, hey, he is actually a pretty good rusher.
Yeah, exactly. Like when he needs to get it, when he needs to go get it, he's able to do that. And I mean, that's just a great trait to have as a QB.
Especially in the NFL, it's a heavy 3rd down league. Easiest way to get yardage on those 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 7s, when you see a lot of the cover 1 shells, when you see a lot of the kind of half man, half zones, is just by running it. You're not going to have a spy most times, and having that ability to get downhill and to move the chains really does mean a lot. It keeps drives alive. And, with the way NFL field position works right now, keeping drives alive, getting in at least good punt position, if anything else, is vitally important right now. Over this, it'll just go over top angle. Next play is a sack, and we can talk about kind of that. We'll build into that mobility aspect, and we'll talk about his struggles almost to extend instead of just gain yardage here. You can just watch it. Yeah, so again, as we see here, I actually want to use the over top angle. If you don't mind, we do have to play this again. I want to use the over top angle to kind of demonstrate Mendoza's struggles. This is a tough sack to get out of, but he doesn't really ever take a great throwing angle from this. He shifts a little bit too much to the inside, and he's thinking, I got to get it downhill here. There's nothing to go downhill. Sometimes with Mendoza, his biggest issue is that he does tend to look for that straight ahead 8 or 9 yards downhill when you have a guy here that you can toss the ball to. It's not an easy angle, especially once we get this wrap. But you do have to think NFL edge rushers, NFL interiors are quick. You need to think, when I'm getting contact or when I'm bracing for contact, how can I do it in a way to either get out of it or get the ball out of harm's way? And I don't think he does a very good job there. This is a not a great example of Mendoza's weaknesses because it's kind of a dead play, but you can start to see the seeds of those issues in a play like this.
That's a pretty good play from the defensive front there, especially against that right guard. I believe that's Aaron Graves, 95. Don't crucify me for that if that's wrong, but it's just a pretty nice move from him, and it doesn't give any time for Mendoza. I mean, he gets right to his drop back and then immediately has to try to step up. And like you said, he's looking downfield when he probably has that running back. Maybe if he just floats it a little bit over the top. Definitely not an easy throw, but something that probably could be made by him. We know he's talented enough to make that throw. But I feel like honestly, it is a little bit nitpicking if we critique it too hard. Because this is just one play out of a game that he did struggle in quite a bit. And we'll see that a bit later for sure as well. There were some sacks or just some plays in general that, we'd like to see some different things from him for. So I kind of continue and just go to those.
Yeah, actually, next we are going to see, I believe, a 7-yard completion. I tried to note all these. Yeah, this is technically the end of the drive here. Yeah, it should be a 7-yard completion. We'll look over it first here. Again, Indiana had one of the highest screen rates in college football. For a good reason, they had plenty of guys who could do that. I don't have too much to pull away from this play. I do say his screen mechanics are really good. I think he does a very good job shifting right out of this the second he sees pressure, shifts right into a comfortable throwing angle, makes a very solid throw. It's not anything you're going to see talked about too much in scouting profiles, but it is a important part of the game. Screen rates are lower in the NFL, but they're still prevalent. And having the mechanics to, help yourself in those situations, it will make a difference in the NFL.
I think EJ Williams there, he's super senior, didn't really have a great block, but he did just enough there to get him out of the way. And then Omar Cooper Jr. was able to extend the play. That's what he does so often. We've seen that a lot in different games, but I think he's going to be a real stud in the NFL too.
Yeah.
Nothing too exciting about that play. And I believe we have an incompletion to Surratt next. Yeah.
Probably contested.
Most likely.
I don't know. Okay.
We can look at this play. From the recognition perspective, this is a fine play from Mendoza. He's getting man. He's going to have a slant right here. If you're getting man, there's no safety to play over top as long as this backer doesn't float over here, which he does not. You take what you get here. It's not a bad ball by Mendoza at all. And I do like the ability to take that one-step drop. A lot of teams in the NFL nowadays are using one-step drops, especially with the sheer amount of play action. The RPOs are kind of dying, but you see in these more modern West Coast offenses that a lot of teams are picking up. Teams are not afraid to just have their quarterback take a one-step and then in this situation where we're getting such a heavy blitz from Iowa, just in the same sense, blitz rates in the NFL are actually higher. So it's good to have an ability to just take a step and then still posture yourself in a good situation. Doesn't end up being complete here, but that's more of a play on Iowa's defense than it is on Mendoza's ability to put the ball where it needs to be.
Right, and they're a good defense all season. I was gonna say that the backer was definitely playing the outside leverage there, crashed in. Um, I don't know what coverage that I wasn't really paying attention to the coverage scheme there, but I know obviously it
Cover
was man.
one. Yeah, it's just pretty much your go-to. This is a variation of a double mug one look, and then all we have is this guy just making an option choice here. Number 41, whether or not to blitz or to stay off in coverage, and he sees probably slants on left side or Mendoza's right side. So, yeah, it's just a cover one blitz. This is going to be how you beat it in the NFL. Doesn't change much from college to the NFL in that sense.
When you look
It
at
is worth noting.
Mhm.
Oh, sorry, Reed. If you
No,
go
you're-
back to the top view, the slot receiver is going against Cone Entiger, as you can see right there. I don't know who that is. I can't really make it out, but he runs an out route, a great out route here, and he comes wide open. But obviously Mendoza's already going out with the ball.
Yeah.
Just something.
No,
to
it's
add on to.
it's a very well stemmed route there.
Yeah.
And yeah, you almost want to be a little nitpicky and say, hey, your line's actually holding pretty well against the blitz. You're getting what people in Madden call a max protect look. We'll just use that terminology. You can kind of play around with that, but I always appreciate my quarterbacks to be a little bit more urgent. And in this sense, yeah, I don't really have a lot to critique or take away except for he knows how to play with urgency.
I want to just quickly kind of touch on who the Raiders have. They've got the number one pick, obviously, slated to take Mendoza. I think that's pretty much the obvious pick at this point. You've got Dante Thornton Jr. He's more of a guy who's going to be a deep ball. That's what he was at Tennessee, deep ball guy. He was there at Tennessee, former Oregon guy as well. And then you've got Jack Besh. Wasn't really the greatest this season. And then yeah, that's essentially what you got. You got Brock Bowers is basically your number one option regardless. So that should be an interesting offense there. The tight ends will get used heavily because I believe it's is it Kubiak there now?
Yep. Kubiak. He
Yeah.
loves his 12 personnel looks.
Yep. So Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, more of a blocker than really a receiver, but Brock Bowers especially, yeah, I mean he should be getting up there in the targets, the receptions for sure, and should be a very, very valuable option for Mendoza all season.
Again, with that Kubiak offense, expect Mendoza to get a lot of snaps under center. It's not something we saw in Indiana. It's not a lot we see in college football. The under center rate is, I believe, in the 5th percentile or in the 5-ish percent rate. So it's something that he's going to have to develop into. But especially in this first year, I believe that Kubiak's definitely going to try to mold his offense around Mendoza's strengths, which is a sense of urgency, especially on these quicker looks with heavier protection sets. So hopefully in Vegas, it shouldn't be too much of a change offensively for Mendoza, because again, you did see a lot of 12 personnel looks from Indiana, especially later in the season. So he does have a lot of comfort in those situations. This is I believe I want to say 9-yard. Yeah, it's a 9-yard completion to Isaac Surratt. Again, we're in a 12 personnel look.
Elijah there. One thing as well, Indiana had a pretty solid. You can continue playing here. They had a pretty good offensive line this season. Obviously, we talked about two guys that'll probably get drafted. Khalil Benson on the right side, not as much, but the other guys with Pat Coogan and Carter Smith, they'll definitely get drafted this year and next year. The big question I think for me is with the urgency, Reed, how do you think that he's going to do with that offensive line? Because we know they just invested a bunch of money into Linderbaum. They've got Jackson Powers Johnson a right guard. They've got Parham at left, I believe. How do you see that working out? Cole Miller, yeah.
It's going to be a little rough, I think, in the early games, especially since that offensive line is very new and they don't have a lot of experience working with each other. It does take time to build that kind of unspoken communication that a lot of linemen have in pass protection. I do think Mendoza's ability to be urgent with the ball is going to help a ton, though. I think that teams are going to want to blitz him a lot. They're going to want to send a lot of pressure early, especially if you look at defenses like LA. They had very high blitz rates. Steve Spagnuolo's Kansas City Chiefs also love to blitz, especially on those longer third down situations. And as you see in this play, Mendoza actually gets a edge rusher right in his face, and he stands really tall. He has no problem loading his front foot into this throw. Makes a very solid throw. He's a very fearless player, and that's going to help a lot because when you're getting blitzes, you do have that fear of, I have to throw into contact. I'm going to have to throw into the face of an edge rusher. And his ability to do that is going to help, especially in these third and longs where, again, this isn't a third and long, but you're seeing blitz, and he steps right into the face of that edge rusher, turns it into a 9-yard completion, well into a first. So those kind of plays, I think you're going to see translate well into the NFL.
And Reed, I would like to add that, I think the run game in Vegas is probably gonna help take the pressure off him. I mean, obviously, Genti, Kubiak talked about how he wanted to have a running back committee or by committee. So I think that run game will help take off the pressure on him in the pass game as well.
So this is actually a chunk play to EJ Williams, the 37-yard completion coming up. So I'm assuming this is going to be some man look from Iowa.
Slot corner blitz there.
Yep.
Beautiful ball.
Good ball.
It's a really good ball. I do want to see his mechanics again real quick here. I believe this is a pure 3-stepper. Yep. Loads into that really well. He hesitates a little bit on this ball, and personally, if you're getting a cap blitz, and it's definitely a one high roll on this side of the field. So we know this is his whole shot here. It's going to be open. And I do appreciate the ability to say, hey, I'm going to take my chance here. The safety isn't rolling to that side of the field. It's good recognition against another well-designed blitz from Iowa. Iowa has been hitting this whole game. They hit Indiana a lot with these kind of blitzes. Blitzes you're probably going to see in the NFL. And the fact that he has that ability to stand tall and punish defenses again and again is going to help with a young offensive line. Or not a young offensive line, but a new offensive line that, still needs time to work their kinks out. And yeah, I think that these kind of plays will translate to the NFL. I think this is why we're talking about Mendoza as the, true QB1. This isn't, QB inflation where we got a guy who really doesn't deserve to be there. I believe Mendoza, with his, in-pocket mechanics, deserves to be up there in the first round.
Right. And I mean, that's why we're kind of looking at a pretty inconsistent and not a great quarterback class. This is like the number one, like as you were just talking about, the very clear option. He was the most consistent guy as well all season long. You can keep playing if you want, unless there's a big play, next play, or kind of going slow on time, but it's all right.
Completion next play. So
again, he's one of those guys that like very, very consistent. Where Ty Simpson, you saw this first like 9 games, I believe, really good. After that, his play dropped off hard. And he was somebody that maybe after those first 9 games was a projected first rounder, and maybe he's still, maybe still will be after, if the Rams go for him, they want somebody behind Stafford to develop, and I think that would be the best situation for Simpson. But there wasn't necessarily a guy after that. There was talk about Trinidad Chambliss, but maybe he's not necessarily I don't think he's really the player that either of these guys are. But there's some other names out there. You've got Pavia, who's really short. You've got Sawyer Robertson, inconsistent, has a big arm. He was hurt this season, played through injury all year long. You got Carson Beck, who's old, a little bit like, he throws the ball and he doesn't necessarily pay attention sometimes. He's a little bit arrogant in that respect. So he just doesn't look at the coverages and he just throws to whatever his first read is, right? So there's a lot of inconsistencies with this quarterback class, and it's nice to see Mendoza as the one stable guy there, that for sure what you're getting on day one, and he's going to develop into a pretty dang good player.
Yeah, we're talking about incompletion. It's gonna be to Omar Cooper Jr. Looks like me. I'll go the over top angle. We'll look at the general progression of this throw here. Again, I do just love the clarity of his drop back. It is a minor thing, but he does always look like he is in a position to throw. That's a minor thing we see when we're talking about quarterbacks is where's their posture? What position are they? Are they always in a position to throw? And Mendoza is one of those guys that at any stage of his drop back, he is in good posture to stop it and break and throw on it. Obviously, we get an incompletion here, but later in the NFL, when you have to cut your drop back short very often to find your relief, or maybe you're getting pressure, maybe it's not even a blitz, you're just getting pressure. It's good to have that ability to stop on a dime and say, I can get the ball to my relief option or to, where the blitz is coming from. And, not lose yards, not waste plays. In this case, it's incomplete. It's not a particularly great ball. But he picks up that if this safety's playing low, I'm going to take that shot. His recognition is still elite. He does have a really good job of just reading the safeties. It's a little bit harder in the NFL, but it's definitely something that'll come easier to him than the vast majority of the prospects that we are seeing coming into this draft.
Yeah, and like on a throw like this, you'd want to see him get it a little more up the field with a little more touch. I feel like that ball is a little underthrown, as you saw, but just better placement is what you want there.
Four-yard pass coming up to Kowski. It's a little bit more than I thought. Yeah, we can look at this here as well. Again, another great example of his just ability to recognize really quickly. We know we're getting man in these two corners here because we can see this corner here is no eyes on Mendoza. His eyes are originally on this relief. Second he sees his man though, he can put a really nice layered ball right there. Again, things we don't really pay nearly as much attention to when we are watching film is the ability of quarterbacks to recognize quickly. We are seeing time and time again that even if they're not sending pressure, he's very quickly addressing, is it man, is it zone, where the safety's postured, and what kind of throw can I make with those parameters in place. He does a really good job just stemming, making a good throw. I can't give the exact number. I know he was pretty high on the time to throw statistic, and that's something that's always going to translate really well in the NFL when you're getting a good second and a half cutoff on your time to throw. In NFL teams, especially on this Raiders team, I don't think it'll be as bad as last season, where in Geno Smith's case, we were getting a lot of plays where he was getting smothered before the ball was even out. But I think this Vegas offensive line may struggle early, and this ability to recognize what he's getting and when he's getting it early is going to help major.
Yeah, just to touch on that real quick, I just checked over kind of what we've looked at and the draft board and whatnot. He had 2.67 seconds. Wasn't the most, wasn't the least, right in the middle. So that's like you said, kind of talking about that and getting it out quicker. He had a good amount of time to throw.
But he does. I think he does address things quickly. I believe we'll see a few plays here where Iowa gives him a little bit more of a mixed look, and that can be a concern with his game, is that ability to pick up the mixed looks early. But, that's something that you can teach. Here you go. Again, good, quick recognition. This is something that NFL offensive coordinators almost always tell their quarterback, take what the defense gives you. If you're seeing this kind of, backer flare out in this sim pressure, we know that we're going to have something where this backer's flaring out. If we have a speed out and we have a edge rusher or a backer flowing to that zone, we have the speed advantage. He's not taking any time to look anywhere else in the field because he doesn't have to. This is more, on the right side, there's a more open option, but in the NFL, there's always going to be a more open option. It's whether or not you have the time to get to that option, and that urgency is really like the reoccurring theme of any kind of Mendoza tape I've been watching, is that ability just to know when it's, take what the defense gives you, even if it's only 4 or 5 yards, and make a lot of use of that.
Yeah, I'd fully agree. Just he does a really, really good job at taking what he's given. And kind of I said at the beginning, like, maybe he wasn't doing necessarily everything extremely flashy, but he didn't have to. And that's something that, some people will watch the film and be like, okay, well, he doesn't flash that much if they watch like one game or whatever. If they watch maybe even this game, that it's nothing too flashy, but he's just doing exactly what he needs to, and that's exactly what won the national championship. So,
Those are the kind of things that you're just gonna. They translate really well. It's not pretty, but it's. I actually have another 4-yard pass. It's on 3rd and 2, to Surratt. So again, it's 3rd and 2. We're probably gonna get man coverage. Look at the way that Iowa's aligned, just like in the NFL. A lot of press-heavy man coverage. Often blitz is comboed with that, and this is a 4-yard completion that moves the chains. Very crucial to have someone on those 3rd and mediums that can just keep your offense rolling. I remember as a Dolphins fan myself, when watching Tua play last season, that was a big question. It was 3rd and 4. Can we keep this drive moving? The offense is still ahead of the chains, but can we finish? And Mendoza, I think, gives teams a little bit more security, saying, hey, we can keep these drives moving. We don't have to worry about getting 8-7 yards on second and whatever to keep a drive alive. He does have that ability to quickly address and deal with it's a cat blitz. This is really well. He throws right to the pressure, picks it up immediately, clocks that we're getting a blitz, and we know Surratt's running a shield slant. Makes a really good ball there. It's minor stuff. It's a 4-yard completion. We kind of gloss over it, but in this game, time and time again, he's noticing what Iowa's throwing. He's not. I mean, again, they could have had a big play with the slot here, but it's 3rd and 4. We don't need a big play. Or sorry, 3rd and 2. We just need something to keep a drive alive. So that's the job of a quarterback. Keep the offense running, and he's really good at that.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, on this play, he's able to diagnose quickly that the corner's blitzing, and he just throws right into the hole of the zone. And I mean, I think that's just high level processing and just like overall great from him.
He's an incompletion coming up here. Another walk-in blitz. I will say Indiana does pick this up really well. I don't know if you're going to get that kind of pass blocking continuity in Vegas, but we can't predict that. So it's a little hard to say, whether or not India or Oakland is going to, or Vegas, is going to be as they're not going to be as capable of picking up the pressures that you may see here that Indiana was. Yeah, I believe this is an incompletion. He does get hit on this throw, to be noted. He does make the right read. Yeah, this is the right read here. We're right in the middle of the box. And then we'll see more from the overhead view why that ball was incomplete. I do wish that.
a little bit of a whiff from the
You
running
can
back
go
there.
first. Actually, I'll let you go.
A little bit of a whiff. I believe that's Kalen Black there.
Yeah,
Would
but
like to see him get more of the center mass and actually give a nicer block, but he kind of just hits a bit on the shoulder, and then 43 is able to just come right off of that.
This is an issue, not really a minor issue, but Mendoza is very stiff in the pocket often. When he does move, it's mainly to tuck the ball down. This is a pretty good example where we can see that he would rather take this hit and make this throw than shift right. If he just takes a step, often he can take a step to the right just to give himself another second, or he can take a step up and allow his back to reset his protection. It's not perfect because it is a very muddy pocket, but he can be very stiff, which if you're seeing a lot of the NFL where interior stunts are very popular, you need to be able to have some ability to reset the pocket, reset your shoulders, and make deliberate throws under pressure. This is something that I think the Raiders are going to want to tweak in his game because it's something that's going to be asked of him a lot more in the NFL than in college football. So I would like to see a little bit more pocket movement this is kind of a lose-lose situation since you got a backer right in your face. You really can't roll out of that. Running back's already lost his protection. But I would like to see a little bit of preemptive movement just to buy yourself another half a second. Because if he does, this is probably a complete pass. There is a lot of space here. You don't have to be – I almost sound like a hypocrite, but you don't have to be too urgent in situations like this when you want these deeper digs, which is a very popular route in the NFL. When you're looking at how these kind of plays developed, you don't want to be insanely urgent because completing this pass is going to be vital. These kind of deep dig routes that you see from NFL teams in the first and second in the early down situations are huge. They're huge momentum changers. When teams can string one or two of these in a drive, they often find themselves in field goal position or in the red zone much more often. So that's more of just being able to adjust to the tempo of the NFL. But it's something to look out for if you are watching any training camp clips or a lot of his early workouts. I'd like to see how he adjusts his feet more actively than in college. We'll roll to the next one. That's actually a fumble. We'll just see what the pressure looks like here. Okay, well, this is a little bit of an ugly one. Actually, Mendoza does move pretty well to the pocket here. Steps up, and he allows himself to work right under that edge rusher. Just gets a hand on it. You got to be a little bit more aware. It's a little nitpicky of me to say you got to be aware of what's going on in the back of the back of your helmet. But you do have ears. You do have a peripheral. There needs to be some kind of concept to understand the depth at which the edges are coming at you in. So you have the ability that, if you step back just a foot more or a foot ahead here, this
Can you
play.
put that back one more time?
Of course. Very good edge rush by 48.
I believe that's. Is that Llewellyn?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, he does a really good job if you want to talk about that. He throws hands right off and gets a really good bend.
Yeah,
that's great. Luckily, Mendoza does recover his own fumble. But I'm not going to talk too heavily about a quarterback's ability to recover fumbles.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a rough rep for sure for Khalil Benson. That's something you saw several times this season. On Mendoza's side there. I just think that's a good rep overall, though, from Llewellyn.
Yeah.
Like you said, you're not going to talk too much about a fumble recovery because there's not much to talk about. It's a pretty good Iowa defense. It's got several draft prospects on it. You've got Cohen Entringer was a potential pick this year. TJ Hall at corner, potential pick. I'm going to butcher his last name, but Xavier Nkwampa or something like that.
Yeah.
And then you've got Aaron Graves on the D line. You've got Max Malone at the D line as well. Carson Sherrar, I believe, at linebacker. So there's a bunch of NFL talents on this defense that he's playing against. And this was one of, I think, really the only games this past season that he actually struggled in. And I think that's more attributed just to the scheme that Iowa runs, and they always have a very prevalent and it's just talented defense in general.
Yeah, Iowa, they're really flexible with a lot of the blitz looks, even more flexible than some of the NFL teams you may see. I remember you look at teams like Detroit, look at teams like Baltimore, they tend to blitz much more out of not really the aggressive and crazy looks. And this is I think this is a really good game to showcase how Mendoza handles a little bit more of a pro-style adjacent defense. And he struggled, and I think that's okay. Again, we're still talking about a rookie quarterback here. We're not talking about someone who's going to go 38-2 in their first season. I think that what you really want to see in these kind of games is that he's adjusting himself to the pressure well, which he does for the most part, and he's stepping up when he needs to step up. He's not taking unnecessary hits, but he is, when something's open and there's someone in his face, he's not afraid to step into a throw. Because often there are a lot of quarterbacks that are afraid to step into those looks, and that can lead. I've seen tons of QBs, throw away from pressure, and those can turn into pick sixes. It can get really disastrous when a team is showing these pressure looks and your quarterback is not. Maybe he's more afraid to handle the brunt force of having a edge rusher in your face, but Mendoza's not one of those guys. So This is another incompletion here, or not another, but again, just another really good rep from this Iowa defense. They just don't give Mendoza a lot of time. I'm not going to say much about him. There's not a lot he could do in this play, except for maybe just put the ball in a little bit of a better place. But this is a really tough throwing angle to make. He actually does do a really good job shifting himself. If the tackle got any hands on the edge rusher, he would be able to make that throw. But again, Iowa's defense, their edge rushers are phenomenal at winning pass rushes before tackles can even get hands. So not a lot to take away from that play. Do you guys have anything to say?
No.
This is another incompletion. Coming up on 3rd and 7. So it's 3rd and 7. We know we're getting man coverage. I mean, look at the alignment. I can't 100% say it's man coverage, but we're definitely getting a very man-adjacent look with the backer mug down here, potentially playing the spy role. We'll just get a quick overlook of the play. Yep, it's just man coverage. Not a bad read, but execution could be cleaner. We got press. I believe this ends up being a one robber. Yeah, it's a one robber look. This is the correct read, 100%. It is kind of a ballsy play on 3rd and 7, given the fact that on 3rd and 7, your goal is just going to be get a completion within 4 to 5 yards and hope that your receiver, tight end, running back has the ability to, push an extra 2 or 3 yards to get the first. But I can get with the way that Iowa's defense was playing. Hey, let's try to take the top off. Let's try to make this big play. I would appreciate a little bit more awareness of the situation and say, it's open, but am I comfortable making that throw? If not, try to look somewhere else, because if we get a stem dig on the far left here, that's going to break open. Protection's really solid. Iowa ends up simming off of that mug look, so that can be a little difficult to assess from a quarterback, especially since it's not a bad read. But to be nitpicky, I would just like my quarterback to keep things more focused on a guaranteed completion on 3rd and 7 rather than just trying to get that big play. Save that for the 2nd and long. Save that for, the 1st and 10s. Just a selection of target wasn't optimal here.
Yeah. I mean, I personally like the decision. He had like a step. He had a step on I don't know who the corner there is there, but we'll see on this angle. Obviously, like you said, Xavier goes in the robber role, and I mean, it's just a little overthrown there. But I mean, that's a high level throw, and obviously you didn't make it there, but still, he's shown the ability to have a bunch of high level throws this past year.
That's something he can develop into later. We're talking about a 22-year-old quarterback. Quarterbacks, we've seen guys like Sam Darnold and Daniel Jones come into their primes well into their late 20s, so it's not like what you're seeing now is going to directly translate to his entire NFL career. He's a risk taker, though. You'll see that Mendoza likes taking passes from riskier angles. He doesn't mind airing it out on downs where other quarterbacks might just look for a relief route or a safety option and try to move the chains. And I think with proper development, plays like that can end up turning out in his favor, and thus in the favor of the Raiders or whatever team drafts him. Most likely the Raiders.
Yeah, he's a definite lock to go in the top 5, probably a lock to go in the top 3. Just the Raiders are just very obviously a very quarterback needy team, and it's kind of just simple from there. I mean, why else would they go with somebody else? There
really isn't anything else they could address. Their defense isn't horrid. So, a guy like Caleb Downs and obviously drafting Jeremiah Love doesn't really make much sense given he just spent a first on Ashton Genty last year. So we're probably just going to talk about him as a Raider prospect. It's pretty much locked in. This is actually a 2-yard run. And again, you'll see it's that downhill mindset. The second he sees that opening, it's tucking the ball down and trying to get vertical yardage. You're not going to see this look as much, especially in early downs in the NFL, maybe in late downs, but he's very good at getting downhill, even though it only pays off for 2 yards here. He does. When he's running with a full head of steam, it's hard to stop him. We saw that in the Miami game. We saw it throughout the playoffs, actually, that he has that ability to really make you pay if you're, running a looser coverage or if you're running, straight man. He definitely requires that attention that he can be a serious vertical threat. This isn't a great example, but when he sees that hole, he's really not afraid to hit. He's a very fearless player in that regard. Yeah, nothing really to take away from that general play there. We got another Fernando Mendoza run coming up here. And it's going to come downhill again. But this is a really good example of how dangerous it can get.
I think.
Hmm?
I think there's a flag.
Yeah, this ends up turning into a 21-yard gain instead of an 11-yard, but he tucks down here, and he's dangerous with a full head of steam. I mean, that is a style of mobility that we've seen become really popular in the NFL. I don't know how many times as a Dolphins fan I have seen Josh Allen on 3rd and 5 or on 3rd and 7 just get downhill and get 8 or 9 yards. It's frustrating. Lamar Jackson's pretty solid at it too. Having that ability just to step up in the pocket. And I think as we see this game develop, we're going to see almost that fake run, that fake pull up and run into trying to hit somewhere where maybe a backer or a low safety might occupy. I'm really excited to see what Clint Kubiak does with him in the sense of his running mechanics and how he uses that on later downs to open space or create space with his legs. In this case scenario, he does just use it to get downhill, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Raiders really spent a lot of time with him using that run as a threat, more or less as an actual tool, using the threat of him running to open up space in the pass game. If he can do that, that can really help develop his game to like that full NFL prospect that we want to see from him.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll roll into this is a just quick pass, from Mendoza coming up.
We can kind of rip through unless there's a couple big plays, we can kind of rip through a decent bit here because we're at about we're over 45 minutes now, so we're already on to a good start.
I can roll through any big plays. I don't think there's any big ones. I'm just going through my sheet here.
We do need to show the touchdown as well at the end of the game.
I want to show the pick and the touchdown here.
Yeah.
So the pick happened. Yeah, we'll cover the interception. This is a really damn good blitz from Iowa. They roll completely out of there. Very safe. I'm not going to call it 4 high, but it's almost just a prevent style look from Iowa.
And 8-man here? They roll back. Okay. So 6-man blitz.
Yeah. And Mendoza gets blasted here.
You can see the running back get just blown up as well.
Yeah, you see he actually looks right to his relief option that gets covered as well. He looks right to the tight end. Good recognition that you're getting an aggressive blitz, but not really the best play selection for Indiana given the situation. There's no real relief option on the field. You have back end protection. He's going to try to make a throw here from really not a great throwing angle. His body's very open. He doesn't step into this. And just a bad ball. I talked about how Mendoza does tend to step into these throws, and you can see how punishing it is when you don't step into these throws. It can be ballsy to step into a guy who is about to level you, but it is important because when you don't, you kind of shy away from it. Your feet are bad. You end up throwing a ball that goes the other way.
That's what happens.
Hopefully, you see Clint Kubiak not call those kind of plays that forces Mendoza to do that. I think they're going to be very comfortable. They're going to try to keep him as comfortable as possible on those looks. But we can cut to the deep touchdown pass as well. Should be somewhere. Is it? I think it's here. This is the play call, I believe. No, I'm wrong. It's at the 49. So it's it should be this next play, I believe.
Yeah.
No, it's the one after. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a 3rd and 10, I believe. This is this sky zone of another incomplete pass. Another bad angle. He puts himself in a little bit of another rough angle against pressure. He struggled with it later, especially when Iowa got a lot more creative with their blitz looks. But this is the touchdown play against another Iowa blitz. Sadly, it's just a slant pass, but he does recognize it really quickly. I give props to Indiana's play calling to add more relief options, as Iowa State got a little too cocky with a lot of these blitzes. There's no high safety. Makes a good throw there. I just want to check his footwork here.
TJ Hall just missed a tackle.
Yeah, and obviously missed tackle turns this from like an 8-yard gain to a touchdown. But I would say the main takeaways from Mendoza is he is very diligent with his feet. He doesn't waste a lot of time when he is moving. His dropbacks are clean. Most of the time he steps into pressure, but it can be a weak point when he doesn't. He does sometimes, especially later in games when he's been taking hits. He can shy away from them, and that led to a lot of the later incompletions. But overall, Mendoza's QB1 for a reason. He's very NFL ready, I think.
Yeah, Richie, you want to touch on something? You got
Okay, yeah. Just like Reed said, I mean, he's a high-level processor. I love his ability. I think he has the highest floor in this class by far, and obviously has a great ceiling as well. Like, he can grow into a damn good player. His rushing ability is like I think a little bit better than what people give him credit for as well. And yeah, I mean, I think he'll fit into the Raider system pretty well if he goes there. Likely he will. And yeah, I think he'll be great there. Colin?
Yeah, I think if they match him up with another wide receiver, they bring somebody else in the second round, I think that would greatly benefit him too. Obviously, they're getting stuck right now with Max Crosby's deal because of all that just happened to the Ravens. But assuming they're able to sign everybody that they have wanted to sign, I mean, their defense looks pretty solid. They've essentially brought in an entirely new linebacker room. I think that it would be a good thing if they brought in another receiver in this draft. Maybe one, maybe two. Another offensive lineman would definitely go a long way too. There's a couple of good guys, especially like Emmanuel Pregnon, I would target in the second round if you can. If you think that, hey, maybe the receivers, this is a pretty deep receiver draft as is, right? So if you're thinking, okay, we're not going to get a quality guard that's this good in the second round, like we're not going to get anybody near that good in the third or in the fourth. Whereas, hey, we think we can get a wide receiver that's pretty dang close to as good as, I don't know, let's say Jacoby Lane. Let's say he's there in the second round. He's probably not going to be a second round target, but just for the example, let's say that's him. Well, there's probably going to be a guy later down the board that you can get that's just as talented as him. Maybe it's a Ted Hurst option out of Georgia State, for example. Maybe it's a Tyron Montgomery who's maybe you think he's just as good. Despite the legal troubles, maybe Eric McAllister, for example. So there's some pretty good options in this draft, no doubt. A wide receiver, I think that they've got some things to address, but they're heading in the right direction for sure. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's something that this is definitely the right step, taking Mendoza number one. You take Mendoza one, and then the pieces just come together from there. You've got your future guy, your franchise guy. Like we said, elite processor. Sometimes the scrambling ability, the extending ability is less than to be desired. But I think it's really better than we give it credit for, or than maybe others give it credit for. I feel like we did a pretty good job on explaining why he's actually pretty solid at that. The accuracy, deep accuracy, at times can be kind of hit or miss, but most of the time he's pretty dang consistent with that deep accuracy, and overall a very, very accurate quarterback. The arm strength is there too. The frame is there, the IQ, like the awareness is there. So I think Mendoza is by far the safest pick in this draft, and I think, like Reed said, or like Richie said, the highest floor out of the quarterbacks for sure, but maybe out of the players in the draft period, other than Caleb Downs.
Yeah, 100%. And going off of that receiver talk as well, right now their top four guys are Jack Bash, Trey Tucker. They just got Jalen Naylor from Minnesota and Dante Thornton. I mean, you have to add a receiver to that room for sure, like you're saying. But I mean, yeah, other than that, I've got nothing, Reed.
I will add really quickly.
Yeah, not too much. Just draft Mendoza. He's very flexible. I think he'll fit really well into I think he'll cover some of Las Vegas's early faults in their roster. I think he has all the tools in his kit to do that. And again, they've been doing a good job building key pieces on the offensive line, trying to rebuild their defense through and throughout. And Mendoza is going to make that job a lot easier, I think, with a lot of the skills he brings to the table.
Yeah, and kind of like we were saying. I mean, I don't really love Dante Thornton as necessarily like the fourth receiver there, or Jack Besh the fourth receiver. If you can add somebody, implement them as a wide receiver three potentially. I know obviously Besh you just spent somewhat high of a pick on, I think third or fourth
Yeah.
round. And Dante Thornton was also maybe a fifth rounder. Those aren't necessarily game changers though. Um, I talked about Thornton earlier. He's more of a go ball kind of guy. That's what he was at Tennessee. That's what he is in the NFL. So if you can get more of a reliable, consistent guy, I think Jalen Naylor is pretty solid. Trey Tucker should be solid. But yeah, adding another third guy to complement already what you have with Brock Bowers, that'd go a long way. And that offense looks pretty scary if you can add some offensive linemen in there too. Um, for the future, of course, not necessarily in year one, but Brock Bowers, I would honestly say he could probably be up there for AFC Offensive Player of the Year. Um, Considering Clint Kubiak's scheme, and if Mendoza even has really just like an average season, um, then that would probably mean about 100 plus targets to Brock Bowers. So maybe they're not in the playoffs. Maybe they're not. Maybe they think they're a year or two away. And hey, maybe you go out and you invest a little bit more money again, like they did this offseason. Maybe not overpay as much at market value like they did for Linderbaum with what 29 million for a center. But
A little bit too much.
they had to do it. They thought it was competitive, or well, it was competitive.
Was, yeah.
And you got to get somebody to protect up front for Mendoza. So it definitely sets the groundwork. And honestly, I'm kind of excited. I'm not a Raiders fan at all, but I am kind of excited to see how they're going to do things in the draft um, and see how that ends up working out for them. But that will be everything for the first episode here on the Film Don't Lie podcast. Again, I'm Colin King. I'm joined by Richie and Reed, and we will see you guys next week.
Yep.
All right,
See ya.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
See ya.